In the cold morning light of the Forrester Creations building, Steffi Forrester's footsteps rang out like a declaration. She was back not to escape, but to reclaim. The moment the large office door closed behind her, the echoes of the criticisms once directed at Hope Logan rang softly, but indelibly. Steffi looked at the design on display, the hope for the future lining in her eyes. There was determination. Hope had heard the criticism, felt the contempt of someone she thought was a colleague. Now, in a sudden twist, Steffi stood beside her, smiling, offering congratulations on Hope's engagement to Liam Spencer. The moment lit a glimmer of hope. The old feud could be resolved, but could the sweet words mask the hidden worry? Amidst the solemn atmosphere, Liam and Hope continued to plan their wedding, a promising new beginning, but darkness lurks. Beth Spencer, the little girl in both their eyes, doesn't want the woman named Sheila Sharp to be with her husband at the wedding. Sheila is eager, hoping she will be there, and the image of her, hand in hand with Deacon Sharp, walking into the glittering wedding scene, seems like a power grab being staged. Deacon, who is caught between promise and loyalty, must face Beth's request. How to tell Sheila she is not invited? In that moment, there's an echo. Are there words that can stop Sheila's need? And is there a heart strong enough to endure Beth's gaze when she learns the truth? At the same time, media mogul Bill Spencer is reeling in his determination to remove all negative emotions of Luna Nozal from his home, and perhaps the ghost of the past lingers longer than he thinks. Luna, newly released, returns, and Bill's gaze is coldly determined. There's no room for complications. When Rachel Rowley, in her new role as an energy healer, arrives at the Spencer estate, and she interacts with Bill, Liam, and Katie Logan, it's not just emotional support, but also an entry into a world of unseen secrets. Luna looks at it with a questioning eye. Is she the one being healed or the one being controlled? During the week of November 3rd to 7th, Steffi launches a campaign to revive the Hope for the Future line, and from there, everything begins to move. Steffi is not only the one behind the design, but also the one behind repositioning Hope in the eyes of both the company and the public. At the same time, Remy Price is brought into the light. He begs Dick Sharp to see him for who he is now rather than the past he's come to haunt. The big question: how can Dick ignore the horrors of Remy's past? In the harsh light of truth, the winner isn't always the one who looks you in the eye. The following week, from November 10th to 14th, Remy turns to Luna, who is pretty much the last person anyone should ask for love advice. Remy admits to Luna that things at Forrester are as disastrous as she thinks, and Luna, despite her own troubled past, throws advice at Remy, and viewers are left wondering, will it be a light that leads him back or a trigger that drags him deeper into the mire? And Bill, he wants to remove any remaining poison from Luna from the Spencer house. But can it be cleaned without leaving scars? And can scars turn into wounds that no one saw coming? The climax comes as all the threads come together. Steffi stands at the pinnacle of power at Forrester. But behind the scenes, uncertainty creeps in. Is she trusting her own congratulations, or is she hiding another plan? Liam and Hope, in the romantic setting of their engagement, see Sheila and Deacon as shadows lurking behind them. Luna, silently watching Bill, and Rachel with calculating eyes. Remy and Dick, souls clashing past and present, waiting for a life or death decision. And the final question, a haunting image. As the lights are about to go out, will anyone see the knife hovering above them before it falls? And as the music slows, as the wedding dress waits to be displayed, as the new design is hung, and as the shadow of truth begins to lengthen on the mirrored floor of Forrester Creations, a question arises. Who will be in control of their own path, and who will be forced to follow the path others have laid out for them? From the moment Steffi returned to Los Angeles, the atmosphere at Forrester Creations became thick with a fog of desire, guilt, and unburied secrets. She carried within her a news that shook her whole world. The child in her womb was Liam's. A declaration that seemed like joy, but opened the door to old storms that had never subsided. Liam was caught between two worlds. On one side was Steffi, the woman who once made him believe that love could overcome everything. And on the other side was Hope, the image of the innocence he had lost in his own hands. But the wounds did not heal. They only hid in the darkness, waiting to be scratched again. Hope did not collapse. She found in Finn, who was also suffering from the pain of abandonment, a kindred spirit. They sought each other like two lost people in the night, using their wounds to warm themselves, to forget the cold of loneliness. But as she got closer, Hope realized Finn's eyes were still on another place, where Steffi and the unborn child were. Meanwhile, Steffi thought she had won the battle to get Liam back, but her fragile happiness was quickly torn apart when she discovered a secret slush fund, a hidden account under Liam's name, set up with unknown transfers related to Bill. That name, Bill, appeared once again like a ghost from the past, reminding her of the days of manipulation, of smiles marked with lies. Steffi no longer knew if she was fighting for love or for honor, only that her heart was exploding between betrayal and fear. Liam tried to hide, lie, reassure himself that everything was under control, but when he looked into Steffi's eyes, he realized she knew. From that moment, everything changed. The love they once had now transformed into something harsher, obsession. Steffi begins to doubt every step, every call, every email. She hires an investigator, tracks Bill down, and discovers that the debt isn't just financial, it's life. Liam borrowed from Bill to cover up a fatal mistake, possibly related to an accident years ago where a woman disappeared without a trace. The truth sends Steffi into a panic, but instead of retreating, she chooses to confront. While Liam struggles with his fear of being exposed, Hope deepens her relationship with Finn, two lonely souls merging in a storm of emotions. Finn knows he's betraying his vows, but with every touch, he feels what Steffi no longer gives peace. From there, the spiral begins. Each has their own fear, their own secret, and all gradually fall prey to their own desire for revenge. Steffi uses the child as a weapon, making Liam feel guilty and tied down, while Hope and Finn are drawn deeper into a forbidden relationship where they find another self in each other, weak, flawed, but alive. Bill watches it all from afar, like a patient snake, using those contradictions to pull Liam back, to control him once again. When Steffi discovers that Bill is controlling Liam through debt, she realizes she is fighting not just for love, but for freedom. But what meaning does freedom have when the heart is rotten with lies? She takes action, cold, calculating, No longer the weak woman. She sells part of her shares in Forrester, transfers the money back to Bill's account to see who is really behind the manipulation. But that action inadvertently triggers an uncontrollable chain reaction. Bill is angry, Liam panics. Hope is suspicious, Finn is hurt. Their world began to crumble, and no one knew who was fooling whom anymore. The sunny mornings at the Forrester mansion were reduced to a ticking clock, counting down to the truth. When Steffi found documents proving that Bill had wired money to bribe a witness in the accident, she understood that Liam was not just a victim, he was an accomplice. And in that moment, her trust died. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just quietly walked out of the house, leaving a void Liam could never fill. He ran after her, searching, but only saw his reflection in the mirror, distorted, broken, and consumed by his own obsession. Hope saw it, and she felt a mixture of pity and satisfaction, but when she returned to Finn, she felt a different fear that she was becoming the version of Steffi she once despised. Finn, broken between two women, feels himself slipping into a moral vacuum. He hides his relationship with Hope, lies to Steffi, and makes a silent traitor of himself. One rainy night, Steffi returns home with an envelope addressed to Bill, containing a copy of Liam's debt documents. Silently, she declares war. Bill receives it, smiles coldly because he knows things are just beginning. Liam is torn between two things, unsure of who to protect, the woman he loves, or the one who saved his life by destroying it. And Hope, in the moment Finn calls her name instead of Steffi's, understands that all love in Los Angeles is marked by betrayal. That night, when the lights in the mansion go out, leaving only the sound of rain like a muffled heartbeat, the question echoes in the darkness: do any of them really know if they are in love, or just avenging a lost part of themselves? As the studio lights dimmed, a quiet void opened in the lavish world of the bold and the beautiful. The hallways that once echoed with Wyatt Spencer's familiar footsteps fell silent, and the audience, even before they could say goodbye, felt his absence like a cold cut in the show's heartbeat. Wyatt, once a fulcrum in the storms of romance, ambition, and loyalty, was now an echo, a reflection in the dusty mirrors of Forrester Creations. But his departure was more than a detail in the schedule. It was a sign of rift in the seemingly immutable world of B&B, where people thought only love, betrayal, and power were eternal. Darren Brooks, who had animated Wyatt for a decade, walked off-screen with a serene smile, but his eyes held a farewell. He didn't leave because he was tired, but because an artist's instinct knew that when one door closed, another one was waiting to open in the darkness. The Roaring Game, that was the new name calling him, and with it came a new destiny. Another challenge without the familiar spotlight of Los Angeles, but full of the echoes of commitment and transformation. There he transformed into Ricky Rhodes, a man who was not Bill Spencer's son, not Liam's brother, but someone else, with other secrets, other storms. And in that transformation, a question gradually appeared like an echo in the minds of fans. When a character left the fantasy world, did he really disappear, or just migrate to another dimension, where his story continued without the audience seeing it? While viewers were still immersed in regret, the bold and the beautiful continue to operate like a machine that never stopped. Other characters continue to love, hate, scheme, and fall apart. But somewhere in every scene, there was an invisible void, as if the characters were still waiting for Wyatt to enter the room, say a word, smile, and make everything easier. That was what Darren Brooks left behind, a presence that didn't need to be there. But behind the spotlight, the decision wasn't simply a career choice. It was an internal battle between duty and desire. After 10 years of living in the role, Darren understood that if he continued, he would be consumed by his own character. Hollywood is a place where there is no boundary between reality and fiction, where every role can become a prison if the actor doesn't have the courage to step out. He chose to leave before the stage lights burned his true self, a decision not everyone dares to make. Backstage, those who remain looked at each other, both mourning and jealous. Because Wyatt doesn't die, he just moves on to another life, something that not every character on this set can do. When Brad Bell wrote Wyatt's final lines, he knew he was writing a farewell to a generation of viewers who grew up with his half-smile and the warmth he brought between the cold battles of love. But B&B never lets emotions rest. When one person leaves, another comes, another secret is revealed, and the wheel of fate turns again. Yet Wyatt's departure remains a wound that cannot be healed, because he was not just a character, but a symbol of something rare in that world, the balance between good and evil, between reason and emotion, between love and responsibility. On the other side of the lens, Darren began his new journey with The Roaring Game. The show takes him to a different world, one without Bill Spencer, Steffi, or Hope, but with Ricky Rhodes, a man with a shady past and an uncertain future. He stands before the camera with a different set of eyes, no longer Wyatt's, but the eyes of a man trying to find himself between roles. Beside him are faces that have shaped the childhoods of a generation: Antoine Tanner, John Fiore, men who understand that acting is not a race, but a series of constant rebirths. Each role is a life, and each incarnation is a death. Perhaps that's why Darren chooses to remain silent when asked if he would return to the bold and the beautiful. He knows that everything in that world changes: the story, the characters, the emotions, but the price of returning is not just time, but the soul. And while fans are still waiting for a miracle, hoping that Wyatt will suddenly appear in an episode, step out of the shadows, say something that will melt everyone's heart, the truth is much more brutal. Darren has closed that chapter of his life. He has been there for 10 years, long enough to call it home, but long enough to know that no home lasts forever in the world of lights and lenses. When he says that's it, it's not a rejection, but another way of saying acceptance, accepting that memories have an end. However, what haunts the audience is not his absence, but what happens next. When one character leaves, the remaining ones are forced to change. Bill will have to face the silence in the empty room where his son's laughter once echoed. Liam will have to learn to grow up without the person he once protected. And Steffi, hope they'll realize that the world goes on despite the loss of someone, but the void Wyatt leaves behind is one that no one can fill. In the world of B&B, where everyone is defined by relationships, Wyatt was the bridge between past and present, between loyalty and betrayal. When that bridge collapsed, all were just isolated islands floating in the ocean of ambition. Darren walked off the set, leaving behind a decade of memories, and stepped into a new land where Ricky Rhodes was waiting for him. But the audience wasn't ready. They kept watching, kept hoping, kept imagining him coming back, just once, as a real goodbye. And it was that belief that made Wyatt's shadow never completely disappear. He existed in every conversation, every photo, every old episode replayed late at night. 10 years may be just a number, but in the world of television, it's a lifetime, a circle closed with a sigh. And then, as B&B continues to air, as new stories are written, the question remains, echoing like a whisper in the darkened studio, when Wyatt leaves this world, will he take its spirit with him, or leave it to wander in unwritten episodes? Or perhaps his departure is just the opening chapter of another story, one that audiences aren't ready to face, where the boundaries between character and actor, between fantasy and reality, gradually dissolve into each other.